So the GDP numbers out of China, we saw they came in seasonally adjusted at 1.6% in Q4, and that was accelerating on an upwardly revised 1.3% in Q3, and it's marking the strongest quarterly increase since Q1 of 2023, and the Chinese government stimulus has flown through to the economy. That's really what we're seeing here. So this is very similar. You pump some money into the economy, it starts to turn over that. Now, it's also indicated that the 10th consecutive quarter of advancement post their COVID period, and we can see it back here in terms of the 0.8 that they had through that COVID period. Now, obviously, China's biggest challenge remains the new developing trade war that we see happening with the US. We'll get to that in our summary. I'll move through in terms of their annual inflation story. They've really warded off the risk of disinflation. That was their biggest problem.
And moving into deflation, let's be honest.
Yeah. So we see here that, inflation climbed by 0.5 of 1% in January. And that's from 0.1 of 1% in December, surpassing market expectations of a 0.4 of 1% increase. This marked the highest level since August of 2024, driven by seasonal effects from the Lunar New Year and the end of the month. The latest result also reflected the impact of recent government stimulus measures and the central bank's accommodative monetary policy to support the economy. The government push to forward off inflation in China seems to be working. I think that's a fair thing to say.
Probably dragged kicking and screaming to this. There was big signs at the end of last year that Xi Jinping finally was like, okay, we can't keep going down this path. We spoke about that when they did move in October. It's the same thing. And what's going on here with the PBOC is a final sign that they can't keep going the way they're going.
Yeah, so what we've seen here at the moment is the rates are kept on hold. So we still see that the 5-year LPR rate, which serves as a reference to property investment mortgage, remained at 3.6%. And so that's what we're seeing. And then we've also seen the benchmark rate, which is the one we're seeing here in front, which is the home loans, was maintained at 3.1%. So that's basically where we see the China story. So in terms of wrapping up China, again, they've got to turn domestically. That's what they've been trying to stimulate. They understand that, they need to do some more heavy lifting in terms of getting their local economy firing, because they've got this trade war that's going to come up. And that ultimately means that, the goods that they're producing and they export. And here's some data for context for you, that China is the US's third biggest buyer of US exports. So you're talking about, okay, you're picking a fight with the country that buys the third most goods from you, compared to, and Canada's number one, Mexico's number two. So he's picking these big fights.
In his first week.
Yeah. And you're seeing here at one point, $143.5 billion they buy annually of US exports. So that is quite interesting. And the top 4 exports, what you need to know is agriculture, produce, technology, machinery, transport, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals. Now, the US imported, and this is where Donald Trump's argument is, they imported $462 billion. So 143 billion versus 462 billion of goods. And the top 5 things that the US buy are pretty much turning apples into apple pie: electronics, machinery, furniture and bedding, clothing and sporting equipment, and clothing and apparel.
Yeah.
So,
and you'll point out, electronics, the majority of them are things like phones. And that's where he's pointing himself straight at somebody like Apple. Stop making Apple phones in China. Come back and make them.
Come and make them in Oz. Come and make them in the US, not Oz.